Alright, hello everyone. Welcome back to the channel. Today, I'm going to be going over the Moses Itauma versus Dillian Whyte fight card that just went down. This was a pretty standard average boxing fight card, especially one that was, not really a pay-per-view, just really a DAZN special. But it was alright. It had its cool moments. It had decent fighting on it. And it had some big outcomes that should be talked about regarding some more futures going forward within the sport. So let's just get into this, man. Kicking off the card, we had Yum Nam Singh versus Muhammad Akale. This fight was just basically just a showcase for Muhammad Akale. He's been receiving the Saudi treatment pretty nicely as of recently. He was on the undercard for Better BF Bivol and Usyk Fury 2, where he had some really good performances. And this fight was no different, He ends it pretty quickly with a right hook in the first. He had some really clean and smart strikes throughout the fight, and he had some solid enough defense that made him look really well. He's still undefeated, so he has a pretty high ceiling to climb before he gets anywhere really special within the division. But yeah, it's just standard, good showcase fight for a young Saudi Arabian prospect. So good for him. Up next on the card was Ray Ford versus Abraham Nova. Abraham Nova previously fought for a WBC title, and Ray Ford is the former WBA Super Featherweight Champion. Or no, he's the former WBA Featherweight Champion, my bad. So Ray started pretty well with some strong left hooks. Abraham Nova kept the pressure on him, though, with some pretty good body shots. Ford was pretty good at keeping the distance all throughout the entire fight, so that kept him really active and made him look really good throughout. And then in the later rounds, Ford started taking more control. He was landing quicker strikes plus his own body shots, which led to him getting the unanimous decision win, which I think, it was a fine outcome. It was a good look for Ford, and I think hopefully propels him. He's on a good win streak ever since losing the title to Nick Ball, so hopefully he's able to come back up to the division, climb back on top, and, fight for the title again, hopefully. Up next, David Adeleye versus Filip Hrgovic. Hrgovic is ranked 8th by the WBA. He is the 2nd in the WBO. He's held international titles in 3 sanctioning bodies, going for his 4th in this fight, going for the WBA international heavyweight title. Adeleye has won multiple national titles himself. This is his second chance win for an international title after he lost to Fabio Wardley. So this fight was really interesting. Hrgovic was working the jab early, but in the second round he ended up getting cut pretty badly, which seems to happen in all of his fights, including like the one against Daniel Dubois. He still remained in control, though. He was beating Adeleye down. He was beating Adeleye to the punches pretty fast. And just generally outclassing him throughout the entire fight. Round 7, Hrgovic started throwing closer and clinching a bit more, which Adeleye was able to take control and was throwing desperate right hooks to try to land something against Hrgovic. And then round 8 saw Adeleye emote before just getting dropped 5 seconds later, which was pretty funny. But then he got back up, and then he started seeing massive success with his left hook, which led to him being able to throw a flurry of strikes against Hrgovic, which he blocked none of which. But he was still able to maintain them. He was able to He was able to withstand all of the punches and barrages that Adeleye was throwing him, which led to him getting the unanimous decision win. This was a good performance from both guys. I think, Adeleye wasn't quite as active as and throwing as much as he should have been in this fight, and how some people thought he would be able to. But Hrgovic looked good. It was a really good performance from him. Hopefully he's now going to be seeing better and better in the rankings now that he's going to be ranked so high. But yeah. Next fight we have is Hayato Tsutsumi versus Kais Ashfaq. Tsutsumi is undefeated. He's ranked 5th in the WBA. Ashfaq is a former international champion in and of himself. So a pretty intriguing fight to see how far. It's a really good test for Tsutsumi to see how capable he is of actually fighting against former challengers and such like that. Tsutsumi controls early. Ashfaq spends a lot of time moving around the ring and looking for counters. Ashfaq does get dropped in the second due to the body shots and pressure and relentless pressure that Tsutsumi is able to hold on him. And then in the third round, Tsutsumi continues this pressure and is able to get the TKO win with landing a glancing blow to the head. So good for him. Impressive look for the guy. He's people have primed him up next for a title shot within the lightweight division, which I could see happening. He's shown good skill. quick footwork and all that good stuff. So maybe he does get that title shot. I don't know. I think we'll just have to see. Our co-main event of the evening is Nick Ball defending his WBA featherweight title against late replacement Sam Goodman. Nick Ball, he's had quite the career so far up until this point. He's won the silver title on the Whyte versus Fury undercard. He went to a draw for the WBC title on the Joshua Ngannou undercard. But he did win a WBA featherweight title from Ray Ford, and he's now currently looking for his third defense. Goodman himself is an undefeated challenger. He's won national, oriental, and intercontinental titles. So I think, this, and he's also undefeated. So I think this is still a good opponent for Nick Ball to show how well he's really going to do against someone like down the line, like, against Inoue. Ball actually started Goodman started really well with the footwork and combinations reaching Ball and having this kind of effect on him. But as the fight progressed, Ball slowly took over with more power, being the deciding factor between these two. This led to it leading to an unanimous decision. I think the fights, some of the rounds were pretty tough to score, but I do think Goodman was a bit underrepresented in the cards. I remember one judge had a 115, 113, which I think was a bit more accurate compared to like the 117, like 111s we were seeing from them. But it was a good fight. It was a strong performance. I don't know how good Nick Ball, like, seeing this performance makes me kind of have questions about how well he would do against someone like Inoue. I think like he would kind of struggle with like someone who has like a good combination efforts and just like, trying to push the pressure themselves, which is something I think he will struggle against with Inoue. But I guess if that fight ever does get made in the future, we will have to wait and see. And then finally, the main event of the evening, Moses Itauma versus Dillian Whyte. Itauma has had good performances on the Zhang Joyce 2 card and the Fury Ngannou undercard. He won the WBO Intercontinental title on the Fury Usyk undercard, and then added the WBA International and Commonwealth silver titles on the Fury Usyk 2 undercard. He's never seen a fight go past the 6th round, and he is the Ring's 2024 Prospect of the Year. So hopes were high going into this fight to see how well he would do against a rugged gatekeeper of the heavyweight division in Dillian Whyte. Someone who hasn't lost since his Fury fight, who's had 3 fight wins over, some pretty impressive competition. He's looked good in his last few fights, is all I'm trying to say. It's a big opportunity for Itauma to add to his resume, a chance to test his durability against a hopefully motivated Dillian Whyte. Whyte seemed more confident going into the fight, but I think he said some of the wrong things during his interviews, and especially his trainer, who supposedly said that he didn't watch any Moses Itauma fights before, in the process of training for this fight, which I think is kind of weird. It's kind of strange. It's something I wouldn't really want to admit. But aside from that, I was curious to see again the durability of Itauma and how he needs to watch his right hand when out range, because I think Dillian Whyte is capable of getting through that and landing some good punches through here. But then we get to the fight itself, and Whyte was very active in his defense. There was a lot of head movement from Whyte, and there wasn't really a lot of pressure, though. He seemed like not nervous, but he respected the power of Itauma a lot. So he was doing a lot of head movements, and he was throwing a lot of body jabs, which Itauma would step back from and then come back into position from very often. Itauma would kind of like seemingly figure out Whyte's method of defense in these head movements, starting to predict them a bit more. He started landing some more body shots, which lowered Whyte's hands quite a bit. And then eventually he was able to get through to the head, which very quickly Whyte was succumbing to. Had him up against the ropes, throwing this flurry of punches to his face, and then they would wobble Whyte into the ropes, and then Moses would eventually get the finish by TKO in the very first round. Quite a good performance from Moses Itauma. I think this is kind of something. It's not that we didn't expect this from him, but it's not. We thought it would be a lot harder for him to get this finish so early. I think a lot of people expected him to go actually farther than that. This does put him in prime position to fight for a proper WBO title now. I think that if the WBO calls for a fight between Usyk and Parker, and if that fight doesn't go through and Usyk decides to vacate his title, I do think it would end up being Parker versus Itauma for the vacant title, or since Parker's the interim title, Itauma would be his first challenger. But if that does not happen and Usyk actually accepts the fight between him and Parker, I do see Whyte or Itauma fighting someone like Hrgovic actually on the undercard would make a really good fight because they're both now 1 and 2 in the WBO rankings. So I think that would be a fight would make sense. Is like a proper number 1 contenders fight. And I think Hrgovic would actually be a really good test. He would be the test that people thought Dillian Whyte would be for Itauma in terms of like just trying to figure out how to the durability of him and how he will do against like some guy who can eat a lot more punches than Dillian Whyte could here. In terms of Dillian Whyte, I don't know, he can just do whatever. Really, he can, he's old, he's 37. He looked a bit lean, but he's gotten skinnier than he used to be. So I guess fight someone against someone like Joe Joyce would make sense. Just another way for him to stay in the main event scene. But really good performance from Itauma. Overall, this fight card was good. Nick Ball had a solid win. That was the one I was most looking forward to. That was a solid win from him. I think he's still, despite, my doubts, I do think Nick Ball is still a really good fighter these days. And so he probably would have a good performance against Inoue. But, yeah, he had a good performance here tonight. Moses Itauma looked amazing. He looked every bit the prospect that he's been built up to be by the boxing community. Hrgovic looked good, and Tsutsumi looked good as well. So it'll be really interesting to see the fights that get made coming out of this card itself. But that's gonna do it for me. That's gonna be that's my reactions to this card itself. Let me know what you guys thought of some of the fights in this in the comments down below. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video. Goodbye. I also need to make a thumbnail. I almost forgot about it. So I guess. I hate doing this. There's no glare in the glasses. Something like here, just hold on. It's like here, yeah, right here, just stupid.